Welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. I'm your host, Amanda. Join me each week as I rediscover my life's meaning, my passions, and my place in this world after leaving behind the only dream I've ever known. If you are dealing with self-loss, identity changes, career transitions, or you are still trying to figure out your life's purpose, then you're not alone. Join me. Wanderers are always welcome. I don't really know what to do and don't know if any of it's hitting or not really. So I'm just trying to live more so of like, am I happy? Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel like I'm aligning with my purpose the right way? And so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I think just like continually pursuing authenticity at all costs is in the era of content creation so important, because it's so easy to like get caught up in what everyone else is doing and then try to like mimic that and be like, okay, well, they're getting success here. Let me like try to mimic that thing. And then you lose some of that authenticity. But then the people that you're really going to help impact are going to be the ones who actually do need to see that authentic side of yourself. And so then it's a lose-lose when you try to do that. Yeah, it's wild. It's like the social media world is so crazy.
It changes every day, pretty much. So it's a lot to keep up with, especially for me when I'm split-brained right now, still working somewhere else. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Cool.
But hi, welcome to the Lost and Found podcast.
Thanks so much.
Since we started recording, sometimes I do an open intro and then sometimes we just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind me interrupting the flow to introduce you. So everybody, Dr. Alec Dragelin is here today on the Lost and Found podcast. We are so excited to have him. You're our first chiropractor, actually.
Fantastic.
And physical therapist. So this is super cool. And we haven't had anybody bring this kind of perspective to the show yet. So I'm super excited to pick your brain and see where it goes. Dr. Dragelin is a rehab chiropractor, and he specializes as a hybrid athlete coach and helps fitness enthusiasts and runners overcome their pain and optimize their performance. He provides chiropractic care, sports rehab, medically guided fitness to help individuals right here in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you want to move better, feel better, live better, he is the man you need to call. So everybody, please help me welcome Dr. Dragelin.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for having me on. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I worked on it today.
Love it.
Man, I have so much fun with this because I feel like I almost feel kind of creepy because I have to do so much research to prepare for each show, but I go, that's fascinating. Oh, that's really cool that they did this with their life, or they had this problem before, or they learned this lesson. So that's kind of my favorite part, is trying to figure out how to introduce somebody, because I get so excited. Like, guys, look who I found. Like, they can help us. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're here. How was your day? What have you?
It was good. I had an unexpected trip to the vet today with my dog, for my dog, Mac. Yeah. Over the last couple of days, had a little bit of like an eye infection, and I'm going to be going out of town later this week. And so I had to try to squeeze him in as much as possible. So that kind of threw the rhythm of the day off, but he's good. We got him on some meds. He's going to be all right.
Yeah. He'll rebound. Yeah.
We still went and played fetch for a little bit, and he was just as crazy as ever.
Oh my goodness. What kind of dog do you have?
He's a chocolate lab.
Oh, chocolate lab. Fun. Yeah. I've got a giant mix. He's a German Shepherd Great Pyrenees, so he's like 160 pounds.
Big floofball, huh?
Very fluffy, but like strong and surprisingly fast. Can jump really high, more than you would expect. Like a big dog like that you think would be lazy, and most of the time he is, especially in the heat right now. So, but he's adorable. I'm so glad your dog will be okay, though. That would be scary. I would almost be like, I don't know if I can talk. I don't know if I can do this. I'll be so worried about that.
He's good. Yeah, gave him some treats before I left, and
he already forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's wonderful. That's so fun. I know I kind of introduced you, you're the superhero in the chiropractic space, but not everybody has been to a chiropractor before, or they kind of understand what that actually is, or what that's like, or how you can actually help people.
Sure.
Even my own parents made fun of me when I first went to a chiropractor, because they were like, do you really need to go multiple times? And I was kind of like, well, if the pain is still there, then something's not right. I'm not aligned. And like, all my nerves are attached to my spine. So if one nerve's pinched, like something else is going to go haywire. So I have to adjust to it. So it must be a very interesting industry to be in.
It is really interesting. And the chiropractic profession is very much, I think, split into sort of two camps. You have the more traditional chiropractic camp that is probably what you think of as like a chiropractor, somebody who does like mostly adjustment type treatments, right? And then you have this other branch that's a little bit more into like the movement science. So kind of focusing more, incorporating rehab physical therapy type of interventions, right, into the process as well. And really kind of trying to take a look at how the body moves, both as like a living, breathing organism, but then also the mechanics of it as well. And incorporating exercise, functional movement, those kinds of things into it. And so there's kind of these two different routes. And then there's really this like third branch too, which is more of the like functional medicine side. So a lot of chiropractors will get into kind of alternative ways of treating internal disorders through like non-drug related interventions, right? So like kind of more like holistic approach to things like, gut issues, reproductive health issues, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of different things that chiropractors do. So when you say like you go to a chiropractor, or when I say I am a chiropractor, we're in the South, so this might, and you're from Tennessee, right? Yes. So this might kind of like resonate with you, but it's almost like saying I go to church, and you're like, well, that
could mean anything.
That could mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? It could be like could be multiple different types of churches and like that sort of thing. So it's very different, like depending on the doors that you walk in. It might say chiropractor on the sign, but your experience could be vastly different.
And I have scoliosis. And so I've seen doctors for quite a long time throughout my entire life for different flare-ups or different reasons, during different periods. But each of those doctors all had very different perspectives about how to heal whatever was going on with me. And it wasn't until recently when I moved closer to my parents, I found a physical therapist for an ankle issue. And he was like, I bet you have hip issues and you might have lower back problems too. And I was kind of like, well, that's not what I came in for because they don't hurt me right now. And he goes, yeah, but they're all connected based on this. So
Absolutely.
If I functionally help you here, you won't need all this extra manipulation all the time. So it's kind of like, oh, wow, that changed my complete perspective on how much I can heal and what I can do and how much trust you can have in a doctor to actually help you get where you want to be, not just like expect you to show up once a week for all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And not listen to you when you're in pain.
Yeah. It's kind of like the game, and I'm glad that you found somebody that has that perspective, because oftentimes there's a quote by Carol Levitt, who's a master in the rehab world, who says, "He who treats the site of pain is lost." And so oftentimes the area where the issue is not really where the issue is. I use the analogy oftentimes as like a traffic jam. So if you're like driving down the highway, and especially if you live in Nashville, you're very familiar with traffic, and you're familiar with 4-lane highways all of a sudden becoming 2-lane highways. And then there's like a big bottleneck, right? So it's like if you're driving down a 4-lane highway and then there's an accident, right? And now all of a sudden 2 out of those 4 lanes are shut down, right? All the traffic then has to get diverted into those other 2 lanes, right? And so everyone that's in the traffic, they're all mad. They're, flicking each other off. They're late for work. They're pissed, right? But that's not where the problem is. The problem is in the lanes where there's an accident. And so even though the people that are frustrated are in the lanes that are open and they're flowing as they should, the problem isn't looking in those lanes where the traffic is. We actually have to address the fact that there's this accident that's blocking these other 2 lanes. And if we can open up those other 2 lanes, then traffic can flow smoothly again. And so in that analogy, it's like your pain site is where the traffic jam is. But that's not oftentimes where the problem is. Most of the time, there's something else going on that we actually have to address and open up. And now the traffic can flow freely. And now there's no longer a traffic jam in that painful spot.
Yeah. When you approach a client that might have something like that, is it always another physical ailment? Because I figured sometimes it's mental too. Like if you're depressed or you're anxious, it'll show up in different parts of your body. So like you think, oh, I have stomach issues. And one doctor might go, oh, I'll adjust these thoracic lumbar spine or something. And that's not always it. Like you have an ulcer because you've been stressing yourself out so much. Or like there's layers to it every time you see a patient.
For sure. So when we get into chronic pain, and by definition, chronic pain is any pain that's been like lingering for more than 3 months, there are neurological changes that happen within the brain itself. And so our brain has this map of our body. And so every part of your body literally corresponds to a physical place on your brain. What happens is whenever we go through a pain experience that lasts for quite some time, we will actually get smudging to that area of the map. And so the brain can't quite see it and like understand what's happening there as well as it used to. And so in the case of chronic pain, there are often times where, like, let's take low back pain, for example, because it's incredibly common. And in terms of like the chronic pain world, low back pain is often the example that's used, even though you can have chronic pain in your shoulder, your ankle, your knee, it can be anywhere, right? But we have to take an approach of, okay, if you've been dealing with this pain for a long time, there is probably a mechanical reason for that, right? Like you're probably making certain tissues sensitive through some kind of movement or stiffness or something like that, or loss of strength in some way. And the low back is taking the burden of that. But there's more times than not is an emotional, a mental, or like kind of a psychological component as well. And so when we look at the whole person, the term that's used for this is the biopsychosocial model of pain. So pain has a biological component to it. It has a sociological component to it. So it's our interactions with people, our community, those things. It has a psychological component as well, how we think about it, how we view it. And so when you're dealing with that, it is a much bigger task. But again, if we're only addressing the biological piece, then we're missing the psychological and the social piece as well. And if we're only doing mindset, then we're missing the other two, right?
Yeah.
And very similarly to I mean, you can think about individuals who struggle with addiction, right? And they get out, they get into rehab and they, go through their process, whatever. And then one of the big things is as they reintegrate into society, they have to change their environment. And so environment can also be a big factor in your pain experience too. And that can be stress, that can be, home situations, that can be a lot of different factors there. And let's be real, sometimes those things are really difficult and challenging to change. And so we do our best to educate and have people bring awareness to those and empower them to be able to identify what areas might be contributing to their pain. But also my approach to it is that if we can become more robust and resilient in the other areas as well, that even if there's some certain things that might be really hard to change or really hard to address, that a rising tide floats all ships, right? So that we can work on some of these other areas where we know we can make some good improvements there. And then let's see how far we go.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people, they're, at least in personal fitness that I've done, a lot of the limits that I have are things I've put on myself, not necessarily that I wasn't physically capable of doing said exercise or said routine of some sort, but I was afraid that because I had been injured in the past, I would re-injure myself by doing the same thing. And so then you're even more hesitant to do the exercise. So then you're overthinking it. You might not be using the proper stances or, movement, and then you end up injuring something completely different because you were too worried about the one thing to begin with. And the reality was, if I had had the confidence to begin with, I could have just done the lift and moved on.
Oh, it's so
but it's quite a topsy-turvy place to be when you're inside your head.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm so glad that Justin introduced us, because I actually broke my fibula in April, and I did a whole podcast episode about like the psychological toll that put on me, because I have a pretty fit family. So like being physically active, we talked about, we have dogs. I would walk my dog 2 or 3 times a day just because he needed that type of exercise. And when I broke my leg, like I couldn't move. And I've spent 2 years trying to get unstuck and stop feeling lost. And I was, like on a momentum, like, this is great. I'm investing in myself, in my health, in my podcast, in all these other aspects of my life. And then crash and burn one night and fall and can't get up. It's kind of like, wow, how in the world did a girl that's worked so hard to get unstuck now is physically stuck?
Yeah.
And how do you not like have that, take such a toll on me? And I admitted, it did. Like I, let that get in the way, and it made me kind of wary. Like, okay, they told me I could get off crutches. Like I can walk now. And it's kind of like, can I though? And like even my chiropractor at the time was telling me like, all right, you're leaning still a bit more on this side. Like you have to trust your other foot still, so you can rebuild the muscles, and then we can manipulate it, and then you can rebuild the strength. But it was quite a hurdle.
Yeah, absolutely. Injury is such a hurdle, right? And it impacts more than just our physical state. It impacts our mental state. Especially when you value exercise, fitness, taking care of yourself, all of those things, and then all of a sudden that's robbed from you, it's really hard to kind of like, I guess, try to remove yourself from that and then like look forward and look ahead, right? But also recognizing like, okay, what is it that I can do now? And let's like focus on those cans versus those can'ts. In sports medicine, we will say, train what you can train while you fix what you need to fix. And so then there are certain times where it's like, okay, I broke my leg, so guess I'm gonna get really strong arms now.
Basically, that's what a lot of my friends were like. It's okay, like you have dumbbells at the house, just like sit in the chair and do those if that's what you're worried about. Or like one of them actually told me, my friend Lindsay was like, be a badass, just go to the gym with a walking boot and like a hoka or something where your feet can look at least somewhat stable, and like see what happens. Worst comes to worst, somebody walks up to you and goes, are you okay? Do you need help or anything? And beyond that, you can just say no. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At least you'll start to feel like yourself. And I finally listened to her and I did start to do that. But for a while, like that first week, really just, I was down and out, couldn't handle it, did not want to talk about it, didn't want to tell people, like didn't want to accept help. Like it wasn't good. I know that that wasn't the right thing to do, but like psychologically, I had to work through that.
I think there's a time for that, right? There's a time to like just settle into that and kind of become like accept it. But you can't stay in that place for forever.
No.
So eventually it's like, okay, well, what do I have to do now? Because I can either choose to sit here and be miserable and like wallow in self-pity, or I can choose to take actions and then just like look forward and move forward, right? And so that's one of the things that I try to help all of my patients. I'm a big proponent of fitness, even though rehab care, injury, recovery is the thing that I focus in. Fitness is an integral part of that, right? And it is so clear that the individuals who continue to try to pursue fitness in spite of an injury, and that doesn't mean that they just say F it and like push through and like just ignore their pain and just, push through that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the ones who learn to like strategically work around it and figure out like what they can do, their recovery timelines and how they get back to function on the back end is always so wildly impressive. Like they defy all the statistics. And so they're like, we expect you to be here by this amount of weeks and this amount of weeks, right? And then they're always like blowing past those statistics because they're continuing to stimulate their body. And as a result, like even if you do an upper body movement, your body is still pumping blood everywhere. Your heart rate's getting up, you're oxygenating your tissues. All of those things are crucial for healing. And so like I just had a buddy who I've been working with. He's a friend of mine, also been working with him, and he tore his pec. So like literally just
my brother did that a couple years ago. It was gnarly.
Not a great injury.
Crazy
Don't want
bruise.
that, right? So as he's been recovering, it's all been around like, okay, what can we keep you continually doing where it doesn't involve this? While this heals, you get the surgery, all those kinds of things, and then we rehab you back. But he's now at the point where he just saw the orthopedist and he's like, dude, you are way ahead of schedule, And it is wild to see how, it's like because he didn't stop, like he didn't allow that to be the thing where it's like he could have just sat on his couch for 3 months, did his PT, all those kinds of things, just like watch TV, but like he still was in the gym, he still was doing stuff and he's defying all the statistics for that. And so it's cool to see when that happens. And again, like focusing on those things that you can do. And like, let's be real, like he was really bummed out, because his like fitness is an identity. And like all of a sudden he can't do like anything with that arm for like a long time, but he was able to hone in and focus in on like, all right, what can I do? We just like cooked his glutes for a long time, just like lots of legs.
Yeah. So now he's got a Kardashian butt.
Exactly. So yeah, it's great. But yeah, and I think that like that is a hard place to be, but also something that I always try to gently meet somebody where they're at and then help guide them through this process. Like sometimes we need to take some time and be like, hey, you're taking a step forward in your health by coming to see me. And at this point, you probably know a little bit about my philosophy, like coming in here. And so like, let's meet you where you're at. Like, how are you feeling about all these things? And then as soon as you like are showing signs that you're ready for the green light, it's like, let's go.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's go work.
I'll help you build that back up.
Yeah.
Or at least build up the confidence to get to where you were before.
Exactly.
And then if you meet your previous PR, then you're going to be okay. Like, yeah.
It's so crucial.
That's epic. You're a great friend to have. They're very lucky to have somebody guiding them through that. Well, it sounds like you spend a lot of time empowering other people and your patients to help them like kind of build up that control over their own health. So I'm just kind of curious about an experience maybe in your own life you'd be willing to share that resonated that mission to you. Like you didn't just grow up thinking, I'm going to help people, feel better in fitness, but like what kind of led you to this point or to this particular philosophy?
That's a good question. It's funny. I got into chiropractic because I thought there was a secret that the profession had that the rest of the world didn't know. And I was like, how possibly could somebody use their hands to create these like miraculous healing outcomes? And so I was really intrigued by that.
Sure.
And so I got into it kind of with the idea of finding out what this secret was. And spoiler alert, I don't believe that there's a secret. Okay, I think we've got some really cool skills. I love what I do. There are no secrets out there. What I then found was the power of movement and exercise and what exercise can do for the body, as exercise is the most potent drug for our health that we have access to. There's not a single thing in a capsule that you can take that mimics the effects of exercise. And there's no concoction that you can take either that will get you the same benefits for your health long-term that exercise will. And so as I started to learn more about exercise physiology, which is a lot of what I studied in undergrad, I really started to realize like, oh, maybe this is actually the thing that I am passionate about, and thought that there was a way that maybe I could blend the secrets of chiropractic with that. And like I said, realized that that wasn't really a thing. And so it really became this journey of recognizing that like, I think what the secret is how do you keep people moving as well as possible for as long as possible? And if you think about like, I'll tell you the story. I just got back from Spain a few weeks ago, and on my way back, I was in the airport and I was riding kind of like a little shuttle, and there was this family there with their 90-year-old father. So it was, brothers and sisters, and they were probably in their 50s, 60s, and they had their 90-year-old father, and they had just gotten back from basically like an 11-day 100-mile hike and on the Camino in Spain. And this 90-year-old just averaged like 10 plus miles a day, 11 miles a day, carrying a backpack with his kids. And I was talking to his son, and I wish I'd had the opportunity to ask him like what was his secret at 90 to being able to do that. Because if we think about independence and we think about like living a long, fruitful life, like to me, that embodies a lot of that. He was still sharp. He was a little, he was holding on for support, but he was standing up in that bus, and he had his backpack on and everything. And I would imagine he said something along the lines of, I just never stop. Right. And when we think about injuries and we think about going through those things, so many times I see the story of people who had this back injury or this ankle injury, and then from the rest of their life, it was just this slow, gradual downhill. And to me, it became the mission of, if movement and exercise is so important, how can we stop that from becoming everybody's story? How can we say like, okay, yes, you've been through this thing, but we're getting you right back on track, and we're getting you back to everything that you want to be able to do now, so that when you look into your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, your 90s, you're still able to live the life that you want to be able to live. And then eventually you die, right? But like at that point, which is going to happen. Yeah. But if we can maximize the quality of your life in those later years, you now have lived this most fruitful and fulfilling life that you possibly could. Your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids get to experience that as well. And that really became my heartbeat and my mission. And so, yes, I work with a lot of athletes and I work with a lot of runners, and that is a lot of what I do and kind of my focus. But even beyond that, it's the average person who just wants to get the most out of their life and recognizes that the actions that we take now are going to carry us on for the remainder of our life, right? So yeah, I don't know if that 100% answered your question. But
it's fine.
That's like kind of how I got here. And I recently had that story with that gentleman, and I was like, this is it. This is exactly why I do what I want to do. Is like, how do we get more of those guys?
Right.
How can we make that the standard for 90?
Yeah. How can I enable people to live in their purpose or move in their purpose, whatever that might be? Because I'm sure you don't only treat like ultra marathon runners or people. I believe Justin told me you also do high rocks stuff. So like you're a constant athlete, have been probably your whole life, but like not everybody that comes to see you has lived that life. Exactly. So their purpose for gaining movement back might be something completely different. They're not going to say, I need to run a marathon in 3 months. Or some people might be like, I need to be able to pick up my kid. Like I need to be able to, or I'm a mover, or I'm a construction worker. I need to be able to bend down and not freak out if my back's going to go out or something like that. So that's great that that's what lights you up, is how to help people get to that. Not necessarily like create more of you or anything like that. You're enabling other people to be better and live better.
Look, I'm not asking anybody to be me.
Right.
Especially to walk into my room. And like, I'm not the best, fittest person in the world either. Like, but the hobbies that I choose, like those are hobbies and those are passions of mine, like things that I like to do. But yeah, by no means is that the standard of like, hey, in order for you to be successful, like you need to go run a 100-mile race. It's like, nope, that's not what we're talking about, right? We are talking about though that the balance, the mobility, the strength, all of those things, your cardiovascular fitness, all of those things will play into your quality of life later on. And it's no different than investing in your retirement savings now, right? You start saving early for retirement because of compound interest, it grows and those sorts of things. And it's no different from that in your physical health and your physical retirement account. You can save all the money and invest all the money in the world, but then if you don't have a body that gets to use it by the time you're ready to use it, then like,
what's that money good for other than to pay hospital bills? Right?
Exactly. So then it becomes your hospital savings account, right?
Yeah, I've seen you've posted a few times about different like levels of healthcare expenditure, and like if we spend all this money on helping people in like the geriatric stages with all these other comorbidity diseases and things like that, like if we had just focused on keeping you healthy from the beginning, you wouldn't be in this kind of detrimental space that you're in now.
It's wild.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And that's a whole societal change you're going to have to work on, because that's way more complicated than just
it starts with, it starts with the person in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, my job is to see where are you right now? And then how do we get you out of pain, but not just out of pain? Because quite frankly, if you want to get out of pain, then like and that's your only goal, like I am not your dude. You know, there are so many other things that you can do for that. Like Advil is really cheap, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like there are so many other things that you can do if purely getting out of pain is your goal. But most of the time when we dig deeper, people think that the pain is the thing. It's really not the thing. Yeah, like for example,
never the only thing.
Yeah. I had a guy come in a couple of weeks ago and he's doing fantastic. And he came in because one of his golf buddies told him about me because his back was hurting when he was playing golf. And he really likes to play golf and that's his thing. As we started to dig a little bit deeper, it was also that like, oh, he's got a baby on the way. And so he's, you know, they're expecting a child in the fall and he's worried that he's not going to be able to like bend into the crib and like pick the baby up because of like what he can't bend down to tie his shoes. Like there's no way he's gonna be able to pick his kid up, you know? And I'm like, that's it. That's the thing. Like at the end of the day, like who cares about golf? You don't really care about golf. Yeah. Like you care about that, you know? And some people do care about golf and that's what they live for. And that's great too, you know, but when we can really get to that internal driver of what is actually important to you, some people come in and they actually don't even know what that is. They think they do, but it's not until we start asking deeper questions where we start to really just, why is that important to you? And why is that important to you?
I think they call it drilling down on your why, right? Yeah. Like it's the opposite of figuring out your purpose, where like you go why all the way down to get to whatever the pain point actually is. And then you go in the reverse when you're like, okay, you have to manifest your dream life. What does it actually look like to you? What does living in alignment mean? And go again and again and again. And you're like, I have to think bigger.
Right.
I can't just assume I have this simplified life already all figured out. And it's like, no, there's so much more opportunity available.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then once we can anchor onto that thing, that's where the entire rehab process now gets focused on that core thing, because it happens every single time. It's like once we can accomplish that thing, it's wild how all these other things that you thought were important but really weren't your core thing, they just are also better. It's like your body internally knows, like, no, this is the most important thing. It's like, yeah, we're working on this guy's golf swing and we're working on getting him better at rotating and bending and flexing so that he can hit the ball and not have his back hurt. And like, we're working on that side. But like, it'll be fun to like come back in a few months, you know, give you a little follow-up, because I can almost guarantee you that's like once we get to that core driver and that thing becomes a success for him, it will be like a light switch where all these other little things, he'll look around and he'll be like, oh my God,
I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it won't be until we get to that one thing.
No. Well, but that gives you kind of like a strategic plan ahead. As his provider, you can go, all right, we're going to do this in this month and then this one and this one. So that's great that you can incorporate that into his plan. I'm curious a bit more about your business though. Like you a couple years ago started on your own, like opened your own shop and everything. Yeah. Like what made you want to pivot and go out on your own? Was there just a particular moment or decisive reasoning, or did you just feel like it was time for growth?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I was ready for a new challenge and new adventure. I've always been kind of entrepreneurial in mindset, and really I love the idea of building and creating something. And so I wanted to do that myself, which was part of the motivation. I think on the other side, I felt like I was in this position in my career where with the way that the medical model is set up, And I was working in a very wonderful rehab practice that was really, really, really great. But I felt constrained in the amount that I could do for people from a time standpoint and like how much I was able to invest in those people. And there was something that was slightly unfulfilling about that, because I was like, gosh, there's certain people who are coming in and I could give them so much more, but they have no interest in it. Like, because they're just there because they got referred there, their doctor told them to be there, and they just like, well, I got to go to therapy today, you know? And it's like, there's those kinds of people. And it's like, for them, it's like, we do the best we can, you know? But if you're not buying in on to your own health, it's like, how much I can only lead you to water. I can't make you drink. Right. But then there were these other people that just really got it and really understood. And I felt like I couldn't quite give them everything that I wanted to in the confines of like a larger practice. And I was like, what if I could just have an hour with these people? Like if I could just have an hour with them, the amount of work that we could get done as opposed to like 15, 20 minutes would be so drastically different. So then I just decided that I was going to spend a lot more time with people and really deep dive and invest in them and coach them and teach them. And really the heartbeat of my practice now is really like the two things that I think about that I always come back to are empathy and education. And so the question I always ask myself is, how can I out-care healthcare? So how can I care more than
what the average guy
and what healthcare typically does? But then also, how can I, at the very minimum, someone finishes their time with me, have them be more educated about their body and what's going on than anything else? And so, yes, we're going to work on overcoming pain and getting you stronger and all those things. But if it's just this like pass through of I'm doing this for you, and there's not like an ownership and an understanding of the why, then that person becomes dependent on me. And that's not what I want. I want them to have this independence that, quite frankly, can really only come through movement education. And so through spending more time with people, I'm able to educate more and better.
Yeah. Or not only just the movement education, but the willingness to put in the work, right? Like if you're only there for your mandatory 3 referrals, then you may not even consider like, oh, I'm good. I feel much better now. I'll just keep going on with my life and not really change or manipulate my life in any kind of way to build off of that recovery that I just gained. Like if you keep living the exact same way, aren't you more likely to injure again or get sick again in some kind of way, right? So
yeah, if nothing changes, then nothing.
Yes, the classic. Yeah, if nothing changes, nothing changes. What would you say maybe to a client or a potential client, if there's somebody listening right now who lives with pain or had a previous injury and just kind of deals with it, and they could benefit probably from physical therapy or a chiropractic adjustment, but they're just like, I'm too busy, or I've had it my whole life. It's not that big of a deal. Like they kind of may be hesitant to approach you. What would be something you would say to somebody like that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think there's an element of recognizing that we have to like understand, is this pain something that is actually affecting you on a deeper level, and that potentially you're not aware of that, because that happens a lot. Like there's a lot of people who walk in who say one of the first things out of their mouth is, just so you know, I have a really high pain tolerance. I'm like, I believe you. Like, I believe you do, because you've been dealing with this for a very long time. But it's almost, I think, this defensive mechanism, right? Where they are trying to like downplay what they're actually feeling, to not admit like there is a problem here and that problem should probably be addressed, right? Like our body is a cup, right? And we can only fit so many things inside of the cup. And so when we're living in pain, what happens without us really realizing is that our cup starts shrinking and it gets smaller and smaller. So we'll play out the example of someone's at the gym and they hurt their back deadlifting. That's my story. Okay. So that's like I went through a really bad low back injury deadlifting a few years ago. And so they say, okay, I'm done deadlifting, not going to do that anymore. It hurts my back. I'm done. Right. So then they go on and they might go get some treatment or whatever. They go on a few years and, the back gets better. Right. But they're just not deadlifting anymore. And then something else happens and they're like pulling weeds out of their garden. Right. And then their back flares up.
They sneeze.
Oh, they sneeze.
They try and get out of the car.
Yeah. Good luck trying not to sneeze again. No.
Yeah. God. It's always the most simple thing where you're like, oh, I'll be fine. It won't matter. Nope.
Yep. then they hurt themselves doing this other thing, like weeding a garden, right? And now they're saying like, oh, okay, I'm not going to weed my garden anymore. It hurt my back. I'm just going to pay somebody to come in and do it. And then, I just won't have to do that. And you keep playing this out over and over and over again. And you look back and you're like, okay, it actually has turned into not just these things, but it's turned into essentially this like fear avoidance of the capacity of what I can do in my body is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And yeah, it's like your pain, you might be managing it okay. But if you really take a look at what you're able to do over time, it's gradually shrunk. And now let's play that out over the course of the next 10, 20, 30 years. Do we think that cup is going to start to magically get bigger on its own again, where you're going to start to be able to do things again? No, it's going to keep moving the direction that it's moving, right? Yeah. And so it's the law of inertia, right? Like an object at rest stays at rest, but an object that's moving in one direction will keep moving in that direction until some other force acts upon it, right? That's my nerdy side for all the physics nerds out there.
I love it. That's great. Yeah.
But so it's the same thing though, is that we'll keep moving in that direction until something changes, right? Or until your life becomes so small that you look back and you're like, how did I get here? And that's what we're trying to stop and avoid. So I don't say that as like I don't want that to come across as like a fear tactic by any means.
I didn't think
but
so.
I think it's understanding that the only person that actually can make a change on yourself is yourself, and every other professional that you go to, whether it's a counselor or like mental health therapist or professional, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, right? Their job should be to be a guide to help guide you in the right direction. But it's not an auto body shop. It's not like you just go in and you swipe your card and they fix your car and then you drive off with a new part. Like that's not how that works. And so there is work that's required, but with the right guidance and in the right process, that work can become very, very manageable and attainable.
Yeah, no, that could be really tough. And I can only imagine that'd be quite the obstacle to try and get people to realize with like, oh, I can just avoid this scary thing and it won't matter anymore. I can manage it. I've been managing for so long, but the more avoidance you keep incurring, the less abundance that's in your life, and that I don't know that I would want to end up at, you wake up and you go, wow, I can't even move. Like at that point, your hypothetical client there would just have to lay down. There'd be nothing else they could do or else they would get injured doing it. Exactly. Yeah. I would hate that, to limit yourself. On the opposite extreme, also help people like endurance athletes and hybrid athletes to help, build up their performance level and, be at their peak. But how do you help a client that needs balance between healthy dedication to their sport or to their activity versus going into like unsustainable pressure? Like they push through pain to the point that it's counterintuitive. How do you help a client that's on that side?
Such a good question. And I think if you lined up 10 different people in my same profession, you might get 10 different answers because this becomes a little more philosophical, which is hard for medical providers sometimes to be. The reality is that sports medicine, when we think about the combination of you have this performance goal, but you also have this medical issue, this injury, right? And we're trying to marry those two things together, but they're at odds with one another. And so we often say that sports medicine is subpar medical care, right?
Oh, no.
Because you have to make concessions, right? There's trade-offs. And so sometimes it's sitting down with somebody and having the teamwork approach. You and I are on the same team and we are working towards this common goal, okay, of getting you to the finish line. If you're a runner, for example, but you have this injury. So how do we do that? There's multiple different ways we can do that. That comes down to oftentimes like your preferences, your risk tolerances, right? Having you be educated and understand what the situation with your body is, and then kind of blending that with whether I'm coaching you or what your coach, your running coach or your lifting coach or whoever it might be is telling you to do to help you get ready for this competition, right? We have to have a sit down and talk through what the balance is of that because it can be really hard. I think there's also high performers are very high stress at the same time, right? So there is the emotional side as well. And that's really where we try to focus in on, again, focusing on what they can do and what they can train right now while we work in the background of fixing this issue, because it can give them something to anchor onto and be successful in this right now. And then just like play the waiting game on the other side, because as we work on building that up, then eventually they'll match again. So it is a balance, it's a dance, and it is honestly like those conversations are probably the hardest part of my day in terms of having that conversation. And, on the worst end, it's telling somebody like, hey, you've got a legitimate medical issue and you will not be able to compete. in this race or whatever it is,
Exactly.
Exactly. So, and that happens sometimes, people get hurt, and I've had to drop out of things before too because of different injuries. And so there's an empathy that I have there as well, where I know where they're coming from because I've actually been in their shoes on the other side and been told by a provider like, hey, this ain't happening for you this time, but it's hard. You have to become you have to play like you have to put on multiple different hats. There's a coaching hat, there's a medical provider hat, and then there's like the confidant, like partner hat at the same time, right? Like having them understand like, dude, I got you. I know this sucks right now, but you're going to get through it, and I'll be there with you every step of the way.
Yeah, for as long as you'll have me, but we have to trust each other, right? Like
Right.
you have to do the physical things I tell you to and come back for the next session and we build on it, right? You
Right.
can't just do it. That's one thing I definitely learned, that throughout my back injuries, like if I only go to the session and I only do it then with the PT or the chiropractor or whatever, and I don't do the rest of it at home on my own, whatever happened in that 1 hour doesn't compound. Like it doesn't transfer to the next week if I don't take care of it on my own and like take ownership over what they've taught me, and then I can build up and get back to my own place. But like you have to get over that initial mental block of, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't even know if this is the right thing, or like I hate my life, it's never going to go back to normal, like this is the worst thing ever. And it's kind of like, nah, you'll get there. You have to trust your body though.
Consistency and time are probably the two most powerful treatment interventions that we can have. Like if you go on a diet and you're like, yeah, I'm on a diet. And you're like, okay, tell me about your diet. You're like, well, on Monday mornings, I have this really healthy breakfast. And you're like, okay, like what about the rest of them?
Yeah.
And it's like no different. So it's like, yep, for like 30 minutes, I go and I do my PT session, whatever it is. It's like, okay. And so then like the rest of your week, right? So it does take consistency. It takes repetition. It takes sometimes staying in a particular spot until you're ready to move on as well.
Yeah.
Which can be hard.
Yeah. You've mentioned the mental blocks from your own injuries. I'm curious if you could share maybe when you've been injured in the past, or you've had kind of that transformative physical moment for yourself, what did you do that helped you get past that mental block or get past that disparity of, oh my gosh, I can't compete in X event, or oh my gosh, I can't do these things or whatever? How did you move past it?
Yeah. So the biggest one for me, and this has happened in several different things, but kind of my signature story around this was, I guess it was 2022, was 3 days out from a fitness competition, and I herniated a disc in my low back, deadlifting. And it was really bad. I thankfully have a lot of the tools and the knowledge to be like, okay, here's what I need to do right now. And my very first thought was, okay, rehab, like you just did this, like accept it. Your rehab starts right now, at this very moment, starts right now. So I like immediately got to work. I was in the middle of a workout and I just like left and I just started getting to work on my back, as soon as possible, right? Doing everything that I knew I needed to start like laying down those early foundations now to eventually move forward past them. And that's like one little like added tip, is that the earlier you can get intervention, typically the faster you can recover. But I was 3 days out from this competition and I still showed up trying to say like, okay, can I still do this? Can I still compete? And it was absolutely a no-go.
Yeah.
I was like warming up, like I was trying to get warmed up for it. And I was like, this is not happening. Right. So I had to drop out, and had a lot of friends there who came to support me and stuff. And so it was like a big bummer, right? Like it was like a big letdown for them. And that was like one of the elements. The other thing was that I really had to have this mindset of, like I said, once I accepted that I wasn't competing that anymore, I had to shift my focus onto the new goal. And the new goal was the back. So it became like nothing else really mattered other than getting this taken care of. And in the process of that, I still wanted to maintain, strength and fitness in other areas. So I quickly tried to find things and avenues that I could do I could still work myself, but make sure that it didn't, irritate the back in any way. And in the background, I was working on rebuilding myself. The big thing of it, though, is that I knew just through stats and through treating people how long this was probably going to take, but I didn't quite really wrap my mind around like what it was going to feel like for something to take that long. Because the reality is, like, when you go through one of those injuries that was as bad as that, like recovery times can be, they can be 6 months to 2 years long. It can be a really long time.
May even need surgery.
Right. And it can be a really long time until you are fully back. Right. And it took me a little over 18 months until I was back. I had, gradually gotten back into deadlifting again. And then I finally hit my old numbers once again. Right. And there was this number on the bar that I was terrified of because I just knew that like that was the level that I was at before my injury. And I knew that getting back to that would mean that I would be kind of pushing that limit of where I hurt myself again. And I will put a stake in the ground of saying that moment, the time that I finally did that thing that I was so scared of doing and I did it well, was the turning point for my brain mentally. Because every other time leading up to that, every time I would go up to the bar, I would be so scared until I hit that number again. And what we call this in the rehab world is we call this the expectation violation. So it is the moment in time where you have this expectation of I'm going to do this thing and this thing is going to hurt because every other time I have done this thing, it has hurt. And then you go and you do that for the first time and it doesn't hurt. And there's something that's so magic and so powerful about that moment of you just like, that it's going to be okay, right? It's going to be fine. And that is really where I center a lot of the approach to rehab is like we talked about finding somebody's why. Yeah. And a lot of times that expectation violation moment is closely tied to that why as well. And so having them have that moment of they had an expectation, that expectation was violated, but in a good way. Right. And now they are on this new trajectory forward. And so, so that's like a lot of my approach to that and what I learned through my own experience to be true. And I kind of knew that up here, that was true, but I had not ever experienced it here. And once I did, I realized like, oh, this is so powerful to be able to have that moment. And so a lot of what we do is gearing people in the direction of that moment and making sure that they can find it.
I was going to say, if the worst part of your day is dealing with curmudgeons, I'm sure the best part of your day is getting to see a client that has that like light bulb situation where they do that new move for the same move, but they're doing it with a whole new perspective now. Yeah. And that's got to bring you just so much joy to see somebody feel successful.
It never gets old.
Yeah.
It never, ever, ever gets old.
Yeah. It's
so incredibly powerful. And there's a lot of emotion that comes along with that. There's tears. There's there's the whole thing, Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome that you get to enable that and see that as often as you do. We live in a world these days where a lot of people probably do feel really disconnected from their bodies or they're burnt out. For people that are feeling so disconnected from their body, what do you think real health should look like or they should focus on for themselves?
Oh, that is a really good question and a really hard one. But I think we have to think about health in two different ways. We have stats and we have standards. We have things that are measurable, data. And then we have these things that are more personal, that are more subjective. And I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way when I say what health looks like for one person is different than what it looks like for another person. Because there are true objective things in terms of what your blood work looks like, how much muscle mass do you have, how is your balance, your flexibility, how is your mental acuity, all of those things, right? How is your cardiovascular fitness? Those are objective measurements that we can actually measure in the clinic. And those are things that we look at to say, hey, we need these things to be on par. And quite frankly, for my patients, I have higher standards because you're here and we're working together. So we don't shoot for par, right? We're gonna shoot for.
We're gonna be these guys. Yeah, we're going above and beyond.
We try to go above and beyond, right? Because there's only benefit that comes from that. So there's that element, and there are certain times where there is some tough love that does need to be had, where it's like there's a lot of conversation about just like feeling good in your body and like all of those things. And I think that's valuable to an extent, but I think it can also be misleading in that like, no, there are things that will negatively impact your health if you don't have these things in line, those are facts. And so we do need to take those things seriously. We should take those things seriously. if you're somebody who actually cares about your health. At the same time, if we aren't taking those objective measurements and we aren't marrying them with the things that are actually important and valuable to you in your life, then to me, we are wasting our time. Because at the end of the day, then I just become this like service. And that's not really what I want to do, is that I want to be in the business of having somebody understand and take ownership of their health and get healthier, but then also have it translate over into the life that they want to live. And what that life looks like for different people might be different, right? You might have somebody that says like, I am a mom and I've got 7 kids and I also really like to run. And it's like, that's amazing. Okay, so let's figure out what this stuff over here from the objective side needs to look like so that you can continue to be successful there. But if you're still feeling super burnt out and you're not being able to, like get enough sleep and recovery because you're going, you are just running around crazy all the time, and then you don't have time to eat and fuel your body, like your running's going to suffer. Right. And so the thing that brings you joy is not going to be the thing that brings you joy anymore because of all these other factors. And so part of that is also trying to strategize and put together strategic plans and action plans. And oftentimes that means, hey, let's start with one variable. Let's start with like one thing that you can focus on and make this one change first. Once we master that, then we can move on to the next things, right? And it's identifying what is going to be the linchpin, what's the thing that's going to move the needle the most early on. And then we can start filling in the gaps with maybe some of the other things as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you went in depth with that answer, because I think a lot of people just assume that health is the aesthetics of what that looks like. And it's got so much more. I think me personally, I've realized like it's got so much more with how do I feel when I'm getting up and just living my life? Do I feel good? Then I'm moving in the right direction. I don't need 6-pack abs or 24-inch biceps or whatever that is. That's probably not a good number, but you know what I mean. Like I don't need to look a certain way to be healthy. Like I need to actually, what does my blood work look like? Am I sleeping enough? Do I feel physically capable to do functional movements throughout the day? Can I enjoy my just being here? And if not, then maybe I need to work on something else. And like the aesthetics, by taking care of my body, the aesthetics will come. But there's so much more to your health than just how you look.
Are you able to have fun? You know what I mean? Like, can you even have fun? I think fun and play and all of those things get really devalued especially as we get older. But that's a huge component of our health, is like the enjoyment factor, that quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you heard it here first, folks. If you're not having fun, you need to come talk to Dr. Dragelin. Well, this has been so much, again, to say fun twice, but this has been such a great episode. I've had a really good time getting to know you and learning all about your practice and everything that you offer. I just have a few final questions that I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
What do you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for?
Gosh, I want to leave an impact and a mark that helps people live longer, healthier lives. And I want to make sure that they feel so valued and loved in the process. I also want to carry that over into my family, my future kids as well. Yeah. I love working. I really do. And I love what I do. But the legacy that I want to leave is that I was somebody who loved people very well and took my work very seriously, but never took myself too seriously.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And really just kind of leaving that mark of like, man, if my tombstone could just say 2 words, it would be "he loved," and yeah, that's my mission. Like everyone that comes across and I think like in healthcare, like we get a little bit like weird about that, because it's like, it's professional, it's transactional, and it is. But again, there is like a care, there's an empathy that's there that I want to make sure that like every life that I have the honor of being able to be a part of feels that in a very real and meaningful way. And have I found that yet? I have, but I'm not done yet.
I like that attitude. Yeah. And the perspective you just said, that if I have the honor of impacting or being involved in your life, I get sometimes you might approach a doctor, like, I have this ailment, and they're like, you're lucky that you got referred to me, or you're lucky I could get you in. And it's kind of like, I'm just here, I'm sick, or I need help. Like that's not the attitude you want to walk into. So I like that you added that particular perspective, that if I can help you, that's what it should be like. I love that. All right. What does living in your purpose look like to you?
I've been very blessed to be able to do what I do. And I think my purpose and living in that is, I just come back to a verse in the Bible that says, work unto others as if you were working for God. And it's the same thing. It's like, as I see you in front of me, like I see you as a reflection of the divine. And I believe that you should be treated and valued as such. And so living in my purpose is remembering that everybody that's in front of me is this reflection of who God is. And my job is to love them because I have first been loved. And the way and the skills that I have been given to do that happens to be like, I'm a chiropractor, and that's just the tool and the skill set that he's given me to be able to do that. And so, yeah, that is my purpose. And I have this set of tools that I can do to make a certain impact on people's lives. And I'm gonna do the best that I can.
I love that. If you could give yourself advice 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Start. Take action. Move.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think anything that I have ever done I've never gotten a better result from sitting and waiting. Action is the thing that drives and leads results. And as long as you're directionally correct, you're going to figure the rest out on the way.
Yeah. Just keep moving. Yeah.
Just move forward, take action. I've always been the person who wants all the facts and all the data lined up so that I can piece together and figure out what the best path forward is. And there's an element of just saying like, you need a little bit of that so you don't make stupid decisions, right? But just taking action, moving forward, doing stuff is probably one of the most valuable things that you can do. Because if it's the wrong direction, well, at least you know it's not that way. So you got all these other ones, right? And so either way, you come out better from actually moving forward than you do from just sitting and trying to piece together the perfect plan.
Yeah. And not sitting in the suck or waiting for the timing to be perfect, because you'll be waiting forever.
Exactly.
Sometimes. Yeah.
It's so true.
Well, Dr. Dragelin, this has been so wonderful. Please let everybody know how they can find you or interact with you, or if they need help and they live in the area, what can they do?
Super, like the easiest way is my Instagram. So it's at dr.alec.dragelin. My last name, Dragelin. Yeah, Instagram's pretty much the easiest way. That's the platform I'm most active on and most responsive to. And yeah, then you can message me or whatever, and happy to chat, happy to set up a call with somebody and talk through what they're doing, strategize, figure out what the right plan for them is, and get people better.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. That's a wrap, everybody. You know how to find me. I'm at hello@podcastforlost.com. We're all on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Everything's under Podcast for the Lost. Thank you so much again, Alec, for being here. I really do appreciate it. I've learned so much and had such a good time chatting with you.
Oh, this was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We will catch you next week. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.